walk. You go on the shore in these little raised areas and then up ramps and cross little bridges and through the muskeg with the trees growing all around. It's just one of the most delightful walks that I've taken in my whole life. It was just beautiful.
The Department of Highways actually maintain this?
Well, they're not doing a great job of it, but apparently it's part of their responsibility, put it that way.
People that you stayed with at Dryad Point, the Bergen family, how long have they worked on lighthouses?
Well, they were really an amazing family, Don. Actually, the Bergens are from a far drier part of Canada than the West Coast. They're from Saskatchewan. And Henry brought his family to the lighthouses about 10 years ago. They've been at Dryad Point, I think it's about 7 years now, and they just love it. Every story I've heard about the North Coast describes it as literally the wettest place on earth, and I was beginning to really doubt it because we'd had such beautiful sunshine for quite a few days. But that night when we came back from BC Packers, the first storm of the North Coast hit me that I'd ever experienced, I guess I should say. And the winds, they start to blow out of the southeast, and there's a narrow passage they call Gunboat Passage, and they start blowing out of there, and when they do that, there's no doubt that we're in for a storm. And the winds blow, and the rain thrashes the coast. And the lighthouse, of course, has to be in a very strategic, visible place, and that immediately places it in the most vulnerable position. So it takes a real battering. And that night, the rain abated, and all of a sudden, quite to my surprise, this incredible sound of a foghorn starts blaring off. Well, we've all heard foghorns and know that they're associated with lighthouses, but to be on a light station right there with the foghorn is really something else. It just, I was exhausted from being up in the fresh air all day and just fast asleep, and bang, this thing woke me up. So I had really nothing else to do but simply to get out and shoot some film. So otherwise I'd have been fast asleep and never seen this light. But it actually was very beautiful. The rain stopped, the wind dropped, and a fog set in. And through the night, these ships slipped silently by. That's a pretty tough one to say. But they were just beautiful, silent. The fog dampened the air, and it was just like a mirage floating through the sea. It was a blank wall of night. It was really a beautiful time of night, actually. A beautiful time of the day if that were to be up. The next morning, the fog itself actually lifted, and I got up again. I was up all night. Henry got up at 5 in the morning and said, it's time to go out for abalone. And this was to be one of the most beautiful experiences of my trip on the North Coast. We got the boat out, rounded the lighthouse, and out over the water. Flat, calm, silent. It's just a beautiful time of day. The destination the place we were heading for is a place outside of the Inland Passage. We went around Campbell Island where the lighthouse is, out to the west side, where if you looked west, the first thing you'd really see is Japan. And this is the open ocean and small rocks that protrude from the water. At low tide, they're exposed. At high tide, they're not. So here we were on a place that was actually spent most of its time under the water in the sea. And I really can say that I knew it was the sea because the smell, it was something I'd never smelt before of the water. There was a freshness and a clarity to it that is just something unknown for people living along the coast here. The abalone are pretty hard to detect. They're so well camouflaged, you'd never know that on the inside of their shell they were this magnificent array of colors of the mother of pearl. But they cling to the rocks and the little crevices out of the main currents of the water, and to get them you have to sort of just sneak up, and if you're lucky you can pluck them directly from the rock by your hand. But if they're moving, or if they detect that you're there either by bumping the boat against the rocks or something of this type, they glump on fast and you have to just zip a screwdriver under them and then you can get them off. But they're up at this time of year from the depths of the water to spawn, and at low tide, they're just some of them just high enough. These islands are just truly windswept, barren places, and there's hardly anything around. But while we were taking the abalone, we actually had a visitor, and we couldn't get closer. But here it was, a sea lion, 100 feet away, 200 feet away, but you could just hear him breathing and panting. It was really nice. It was so quiet there. All it was heard is this slow surge of the water. And quite to my surprise again, the pumping of the barnacles. Now, I'd never heard a barnacle doing its thing before, but they actually pump the water. And as you looked low across the horizon of the rocks, you would see these little fountains of water. It was just like some automatic sprinkling system, as if they didn't, as if they needed more water. It just really unusual. This was just, I'd never seen anything so alive with life. The urchins, the abalone, and shells growing on the abalone, and things of this type, and the great mats of kelp in thick layers just hanging like hair on this head of the rock. It had an eeriness about it that really I can't describe. Henry comes often to the west side of the island for abalone and to fish, and it's really quite good for me to see that, and surprising for me to see that lighthouse living just doesn't have to be an isolated thing. For the kids along the shore, that's their playground, but this whole sea is Henry's backyard, and he harvests the sea for the things he needs, and it's really quite a unique thing.
Well, what do they do with the abalone? Do they eat them fresh, or?
Well, the cats get one or two. Actually, he shucks them, soaks them in vinegar and water to remove the stain around the skirt, and then just pounds them slightly, and that is a delicacy of the sea. Don, for me there's been a very interesting consequence of my trip to the lighthouse. The Bergen family and myself have arranged to trade goods from each of our respective areas. Henry, for example, catches a lot of salmon, smokes them, and Mrs. Bergen cans them. And I frequently make trips up to the Okanagan where we preserve fruit. So we're going to send Henry cherries and apricots and good things like that. And in return, Henry's going to send us back canned, smoked spring salmon. So it's been a really fortunate meeting for us, and our friendship is going to really, I'm sure, continue.
Then you've achieved the close contact with people that you set out to make.
I really feel I have.
Ron, I want to thank you for being with us today. Our guest has been Ron Oriu. That's Kalahani. I'll see you next week.